Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Midday News on 3FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Adu. The news is also live on Kesmi 107.1 FM and across the world at 3news.com. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Office of Special Prosecutor charges former CEO of National Petroleum Authority Mustafa Abdul Hamid and 9 others over an alleged corruption scheme involving more than 280 million Ghana cedis. Also coming up, Citizens Coalition calls on Parliament to suspend further deliberations on the Ghana Scholarships Authority Bill 2025, currently under consideration. Much later on the program, authorities resume rescue operations for over 30 illegal miners trapped inside a collapsed mine pit at Achimwanchi. This afternoon, we're live in the eastern region for the very latest. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Now, the Office of the Special Prosecutor, OSP, has filed charges against Mustafa Abdul Hamid, former Chief Executive Officer of the National Petroleum Authority, NPA, along with 9 other individuals, including 3 companies, over an alleged corruption scheme involving more than 280 million cedis. The accused have been charged with multiple counts of extortion and money laundering before the High Court Criminal Division in Accra. The accused persons are Mustafa Abdul Hamid, like I just told you, former Chief Executive Officer of the NPA, Jacob Kwabena Amwa, coordinator of the Unified Petroleum Pricing Fund at NPA and managing director of 3 corporate entities, Propnest, Kel Logistics and King's Energy. Also, Wendy Newman, NPA staff, Albert Ankra, Director, Kel Logistics Limited, Isaac Mensah, Director, Kel Logistics Limited, Bright Bediako Mensah, Director, Kel Logistics and King's Energy Limited. Also, Kweku Abwajiakwa, Director, King's Energy Limited. Also, like I just told you, Propnest Limited, Kel Logistics Limited, King's Energy Limited. Let me say that we'll be speaking to Mr. Adam Senano very shortly on this, but let me bring you just a bit more as regards what the Special Prosecutor said in that statement published earlier today. It says the charges stem from investigations initiated by the OSP in late 2024 into alleged unlawful conduct, including the diversion of public funds and collusion with oil marketing and bulk distribution companies. The OSP statement said that between December 2022 and 2024, the first 3 accused persons, Mustafa Abdul Hamid, Jacob Kwabena Amwa, and Wendy Newman, allegedly orchestrated and operated a criminal extortion scheme. Through the scheme, they unlawfully collected 280 million Ghana cedis, 516,127.19 from petroleum transporters and oil marketing companies. The OSP alleges that the scheme, initiated by Abdul Hamid and implemented by Amwa and Newman, lacked any lawful mandate and exploited their positions within the NPA. The Special Prosecutor, Kisia Jabin, held a news conference last month at which he announced charges will be filed in relation to this matter, and we'll be bringing you that sound very shortly. But let's connect to co-chair Citizens Movement Against Corruption, Adam Senano, who joins us live on the phone. Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good afternoon.
The OSP at its last media engagement spoke about the issue, and today the office has filed charges. Let me first get your initial reaction to this.
Well, the caliber and stature of those involved, is shocking. One was not expecting that at the highest echelons of the MPA you would have anybody who would be directly linked to things like this. But yet again, kudos to the OSP. Because if you understand the nature of this particular activity, it would not normally be picked up by internal nor external audits, because what it means is that the regular charges and payments were made. But beyond that, persons were demanding additional payments. So unless you got a whistleblower or somebody with a patriotic interest, you're unlikely to get this kind of information. So kudos to them. Shocking to identify the kinds of persons involved. And hopefully we'll be able to retrieve and make sure these monies are given back and used for the state.
And indeed, per the statement of the special prosecutor, we saw that it seems investigations might have started from 2022 or between 2022 and 2024, and already the statement also telling us that it has been filed at the High Court. That presupposes that the special prosecutor is perhaps armed with some important evidence, as it were, against these individuals and companies.
Well, yes, and you'd see that they made an effort to give indicative information. For example, identifying a certain amount given to Hamid himself, I think it was 24 million or so at one point, and then indicating who was in charge of distributing other amounts in excess of 200 million on the channels. So clearly the 2-3 year investigation has been one that has been painstaking, such that at this point they feel that they are empowered enough with the kind of evidence that can secure some ruling. So kudos to them for the work being done. It's a bit disappointing when we have, and I mean, more and more it seems as if the kind of due diligence we need to do on persons appointed needs to be stronger and needs to look at a lot more of the integrity issues over a long track period. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense that we have so many cases of our high-ranking people being engaged in these kinds of activities.
Indeed, and just corroborating your point, one of the things that people have been concerned about is the lack of prosecution of persons believed to be corrupt, and even how long it takes. What are your expectations beyond what you've just mentioned?
Well, it's one of the reasons why I have been calling for specialized courts. Earlier this year, I was a speaker at in Kenya, where they launched their Kenya Integrity Plan. It's a version of our National Anti-Corruption Action Plan. And as part of the process, they indicated to me they have 12 specialized courts where the entire value chain has been trained in how to deal and dispense on issues related to corruption. And what it means is that they don't take a case and say come back after 2 weeks or after a month. Every day that case is being run, and so that they have a time frame of within 6 months they discharge of these things. They set the standards, and the precedents are high. So everybody knows that, look, in our country, corruption is dealt with on a day-to-day basis. The court cases run. It's not like you come back, you may have 5 years, 7 years, no conclusion. We need to go that way, have people trained within the anti-corruption good governance sector, within the judiciary, and ensure that we speed up the conclusion of these cases, set a very high precedent, and make it unlikely for people to think they can get away with this kind of fraud and impunity.
But at least before that special court you're talking about coming, you would expect that the High Court, which has had this case filed, that would be expeditious enough to ensure that justice is brought, or the state is able to recover the monies in time.
Well, definitely. And if there's a need for the court to look at how often it sits on this, these are things that I think within the framework of the administrative rules of court procedure, they should be able to look at and ensure that we dispense of these cases as soon as possible.
Thank you so much, Mr. Senanu, for speaking to us.
Thank you.
And he had there Adam Senanu, his co-chair, Citizens Movement Against Corruption. I was telling you earlier that the special prosecutor held a news conference last month, at which event he announced charges will be filed in relation to this matter. Listen to exactly what he said last month.
The OSP investigation has revealed that between 2022 and 2024, some high-ranking officials of NPA devised and implemented a corrupt scheme of using public office for profit through threats, intimidation, coercion, suggestions, bribery, and inordinate regulatory duress to obtain for their personal benefit As at the close of business on 30 May 2025, the OSP had uncovered, through tracing and trailing, an amount of 280,516,127 cedis and 19 pesos, being proceeds of the corrupt scheme, some of which has been used by the perpetrators to acquire identified and traced apartments, suites, houses in country and abroad, 22 fuel haulage trucks, and the incorporation, acquisition, and operation of oil marketing companies to compete with the oil marketing companies they were regulating. The OSP, before the end of June, would file criminal charges against the first batch of the perpetrators and complicit oil marketing companies and their officials. Upon filing, we will brief you in detail in respect of who did what, who acquired what, and what has been recovered.
And you had the Special Prosecutor Kisia Jabing at that press conference last month, which has been acted upon, as in he filing the charges against these individuals at the High Court. Some 11 minutes past the hour of 12. When we come back, we'll tell you why the Citizens Coalition, a group comprising prominent civil society organizations and distinguished public figures, has called on Parliament to suspend deliberations on the Ghana Scholarships Authority Bill 2025. Stay with us.
Ghana, it's a new year and Bills Microcredit is here to support your dreams. If you're not working but want to start a business, don't let money stop you. With just your Ghana card, you can get a loan to turn your ideas into reality. Already running a business? Need more capital? Or are you a salary worker looking for extra funds? Bills offers fast and easy loans with no collateral, no deposit, and no SUSI savings required. Wherever you are, whatever you need, Bills makes it happen. Call Bills Microcredit today. Call 0596 920 833 or 0302 200 390 and get started. Bills is licensed and regulated by the Bank of Ghana. Bills, financing your needs. Terms and conditions apply.
Freezer, yeah, diaba. Adama for diaba. Hey, freezer. Adama. Adama, Metimoso, my sorry. Canino, Obo Moasia. I do for no be a munum and san last 9. I tell what we did pass here. Adama for you from what we say. Yet the Adruba Cope, a ship we be a high technology. I could for freezer. When Kwan, and once open your 15 letters. No fugum, what ya no fugum. What the bus here, if we be any of us, you, equal to say, over Timono. Then we sure say, mention Tassia. Then what's enough for now? Freezer, when up a day. Freezer,
Dacia, a basson do so among Ammoniaji.
To me, me what's it got? To me, but you may not do some doom. Adama, with that Adama, no queer. Adama, you can't resist.
Ubenya Adama West Africa for a dream, or baby bear a tongue cry on who you. I feel Kayona Kenkai in Choya, a dream.
And you're still here on the Midday News on Shree FM 92.7. Thank you very much for staying. Now, the Citizens Coalition, a group comprising prominent civil society organizations and distinguished public figures, has called on Parliament to suspend further deliberations on the Ghana Scholarships Authority Bill 2025, currently under consideration. In a statement, the coalition acknowledged government efforts to reform Ghana's scholarship system, but criticized the lack of transparency and stakeholder engagement in the legislative process. They warned that the current version of the bill risks entrenching the very issues it aims to resolve, including political interference, nepotism, and opacity. The coalition appealed directly to the Speaker of Parliament to facilitate a suspension of the current legislative process and initiate national stakeholder consultations. Well, the Africa Parliamentary Network has also waded in questioning how such an important draft legislation was taken through the various stages with indecent haste and close to zero public participation. Let's speak to Kofi Asare, who is the executive Director. Okay, we'll be speaking to Kofi Asare very shortly, but let's speak to Christian Yale, our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent. Chris, I understand you've got some reactions on the floor. What can you tell us?
Exactly. So some of the MPs, especially those who serve on the Select Committee on Education, have been responding to the concerns raised by Africa Education Watch as well as the Citizens Coalition. Basically, the likes of the Ketu North MP, Eric Edem Agbana, for instance, are taken to social media, for instance, to deny all of those assertions that the bill would rather institutionalize nepotism, cronyism, and the other mistakes or the issues that have characterized the award of scholarships in the past, for which reason this bill is being passed to institutionalize the scholarship authority to deal with some of those issues. He, for instance, is of the view that during the consideration at the committee level, Beatrice, when the bill was brought to Parliament to be passed under certificate of urgency, the House referred it back to the Joint Committee on Education as well as the Subsidiary Legislation Committee for them to consider it before they bring it back to the House. And so he is of the view that every clause of the bill has been thoroughly looked at the committee level before it was even brought to the House for it to be looked at. And so far from all of those assertions being made by the Citizen Coalition and the rest of them, he is of the view that the bill is the next step to dealing with scholarship issues and awarding deserving Ghanaian students going forward.
Thank you very much, Christian Yale. And of course, we'll be getting back to you to get more reactions from Parliament on this very bill facing backlash, as it were. But let's get a quick reaction as well from the Executive Director of the Africa Parliamentary Network, Sami Obeng. Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, Beatrice. Thanks for having me.
Why is there so much concern about the speed with which this bill is being taken through the passage process, as it were?
Well, Beatrice, first of all, it's important to establish that, a law to deal with some of the problems we've had with our scholarship situation in the past is a good thing, right? And it's important to commend government that within its first 6 months, in office, they've worked on this and have brought it to Parliament. So the executive branch have done their bit, right? But our Parliament are set up as the principal lawmaking body. And in the context of lawmaking, they must be that house that ensures that the people's voices find expression in that draft legislation that has been brought by the executive branch. And that is why public participation in the lawmaking process is extremely important. Now, think about it this way. Members of Parliament who form the Committee on Education added up with the other committee on state interest that were joined to the Committee of Education that looked at this. Without public participation, they'll be missing out on the voices and lived experiences of people who have actually faced challenges with the scholarship situation in the past. The students, the many students who are out there on scholarships who are having challenges. The many people who actually applied but they were denied for very flimsy reasons. The development partners and organizations that have usually brought some of their scholarship arrangements to the Secretariat to administer and have actually had their hands burned, the youth groups, the student associations, and what have you, would not all have their views, their thoughts, their lived experiences find expression in this law once it is passed without proper public consultation. And what has been the practice in Parliament? The practice in Parliament is that when a bill is laid in Parliament and referred to a committee, the committee must engage, citizens' engagement, advertising, that memoranda is actually requested, allowing for time for this memoranda to be looked at, factoring in some of the concerns. We've learned over the years that we've done this work as Parliamentary Network Africa, that it is through this process of public engagement that Parliament sometimes gets the lights sparked in their minds on brilliant ideas that could also be factored into the original draft that has come. If members of Parliament alone, in less than 1 week, sit within the enclaves of Parliament, decides that they know everything so far as scholarship-related matters are concerned in this country, maybe simply because they've engaged with the folks at the Scholarship Secretariat and the Ministry of Education, and for that reason they come up and want to rush through this lawmaking process. Then we would eventually hit a snag in the future when we get to realize that there are specific things in the bill that did not, or in the acts that were not factored in properly. All we are asking for is that this is a good act or a good bill. Certainly, it makes for a very important subject matter. No haste. Let's take our time. Let's reflect on the various provisions. Let's ensure that it is made waterproof. Let's make it tighter so that by the time it gets passed, it will be seen as a good law, having emanated from the ministry, but also having been given better expression by the Parliament of Ghana.
So the concern is that the bill has not been allowed to be scrutinized properly?
Absolutely zero, so far as we are concerned.
But having made that point, though, what specific areas do you see as problematic in this bill, which is currently under consideration?
Beatrice, you see, there is a thing for why there is a need for multiple stakeholders. You see, the bill, there have been many bills that I have actually had the opportunity to look at and work with, so far as our work at Parliamentary Network is concerned. There are times when, on the face of it, when it comes in, it looks like a brilliant piece of draft legislation, only for some stakeholders who have nuanced details and ideas around some of the areas come to look at it and are able to point to specific, things. So as it is now, the bill as has been presented, our concern as Parliamentary Network Africa, and of course we are not experts in scholarship administration and all of that, but what we know from being experts in parliamentary practice and procedure is that allowing an opportunity for diverse stakeholders to take time to reflect and to provide viewpoints on these matters makes it better for all of us.
Yes, I get that. So I'm just asking whether you've seen certain specific clauses or items in there that you think will not be good, that you think should be subjected to the public scrutiny that you talk about.
What are we trying to do with the bill? We're trying to solve, a problem. Laws are usually brought in to create, bills are brought into Parliament to create laws in areas where there are non-existing laws, or to also fix defects in the current system. What are the defects in the current system? It's about nepotism. It's about, corruption within the space. Are the provisions in the current bill fixing these things adequately? Are they watertight? In our opinion, not necessarily. Yes, there are provisions in the current bill that actually speaks to some of these matters. Yes, there are some brilliant ideas that have been suggested by this current bill, including publishing the names of beneficiaries of scholarships on a regular basis and what have you, including some instances of not allowing people to take courses on scholarship outside of the country when those courses can be offered, here in Ghana and what have you. Some brilliant ideas are in there. We are not saying that this is a bad law in the proper sense of the word. We are only saying that we are better off when we are able to congregate all of the best minds around this subject matter to aid Parliament in ensuring that their role of refining draft legislation that comes to them is played efficiently and effectively.
We'll have to end it here. Thank you very much, Samuel Bain. He's Executive Director for the Parliamentary Network Africa. Thank you so much for sharing your views with us. Now, local authorities have resumed rescue operations for over 30 illegal miners trapped inside a collapsed mine pit at Achimwenchi in the Denchambor district of the Eastern Region. The incident occurred on Wednesday when the pit caved in, killing 3 miners and leaving another in critical condition at the hospital. Initial rescue efforts were suspended after security officials faced resistance from angry residents protesting the operation. Let's speak to our regional correspondent Yvonne Nekwe, who's currently on site. Yvonne, can you confirm whether rescue efforts have fully resumed, like I just insinuated, and whether there have been any survivors brought out?
Well, Beatrice, indeed, rescue effort has begun. It actually began early this morning. The locals are leading the way, but unfortunately, they haven't been successful in probably getting any of the miners, whether alive or dead. All they have been able to see are skeleton boots of the people who were working here at the mine site. The place is a bit hostile. Of course, you can understand because of the nature of the death that has been recorded. As I speak to you, there's a standstill because there hasn't been any agreement between NADMOL officials, the residents themselves, as to the best equipment or technology to use to continue the exercise. And so we're just hoping that probably the next few hours they will jaw and then get the right best way to do it and then continue the efforts here.
Indeed, they're hostile, but at least there's one step forward, which is that they've allowed the operation to start. But are you able to tell us what convinced them to allow this in the first place?
Well, for them, they believe that in as long as human beings are involved, whether they are indigents or not, they need to help in their rescue effort. They're hoping that the traditional authorities coming as quickly as possible and possibly pour some libation. You do know that in areas like this, tradition culture is so much ahead, especially when we're dealing with water bodies and the land in which they are working. So all of these things are parts of the Jojo they're engaging in to ensure that the traditional authorities coming, libation us forward, and then the rescue efforts do continue. Large crop of youth here hoping to see how the rescue efforts go. But unfortunately, I'm yet to cite any of the policemen here as we saw in the videos yesterday.
In the meantime, though, aside from the resistance, which is kind of waning from the people in the area, are there any major challenges to this effort that you see?
Well, the only major challenge is which of the best way we should go among stakeholders here, the locals, the NADMO, the district assembly. That is the only challenge here. If they do not have an understanding of the best way, then it means that probably it might come to a halt and probably they will have to continue the next day.
Thank you very much, Yvonne Nekwe. She's our correspondent in the Eastern region. Now, as part of efforts by the Ministry of Education and the Ghana Education Service to expand the GES Lively Minds program nationwide, the Director General of the Ghana Education Service, Professor Ernest Kofi Davis, has admonished parental and community involvement to ensure the program is sustainable. Professor Davis says the Ghana Education Service will ensure that all the necessary resources and skills are available for the benefit of children. The GES Lively Minds program is an early childhood education program that is being implemented across 8 regions within the northern belt of the country with 64 districts and 3,500 communities. Let's engage Christopher Mwako. He's a man in that part of the country and he's also been following this program. Chris, tell us about the program by the GES and how young pupils are expected to benefit from it.
Yes, so Beatrice, we know that parents are drivers of the development of their children. And so what the Lively Minds program seeks to do is to engage parents, let them take their children through some level of early childhood training, such that they will be able to respond quickly to what their parents teach them, besides what they learn in school. So these parents are engaged, they go to school, they use local and traditional methods of getting these children to understand some basic child development issues. And so since the establishment or the initiation of this particular program, the mothers have been taking their children through, they go to the schools, they take them through some plays and some simple identification methods so that they'll be able to catch up with what is being taught in school. And so the program in the northern region has been impactful as more communities are beginning to adapt this strategy in getting their children's attention when it comes to teaching and learning. The Northern Regional Director of Lively Minds has been engaging the media. Let's take a listen to what she's been saying about the program.
What the program basically seeks to gain is the fact that we believe that parents are the sleeping giants to education, especially early childhood development of their children. And we believe that once these sleeping giants are awoken from their sleep, there is a lot of power and potential they wield that can help in the education of their children. And as we have seen today, mothers who are mainly illiterate have been empowered to deliver teaching and learning using CLRs in the classroom, supporting the KG teachers. And this could only be achieved through the partnership with GES, because the schools belong to the Ghana Education Service, the teachers belong to the Ghana Education Service. But there is this gap that prevents parents, which are mindset gaps. The parents do not believe that they have the power to support the education of their children because they think because of poverty, because they are not educated. And so what this program seeks to do is to empower these parents and build their confidence to believe that they can contribute to the education of their children and make their children successful and give them a better future.
And you had the Northern Regional Director of the GES Lively Minds program speaking earlier, and also you had our correspondent Christopher Amwako. My name is Beatrice Adu. Thank you very much for joining us today. Log on to srinews.com for more news. Coming up next is Business Daily with Michael Obudu.
And hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to Business Daily here on 3FM 92.7 with me, Michael Obudu. Coming up, business community demands significant cuts in policy rates ahead of the Monetary Policy Committee MPC meeting.
Policy rate to curb inflation. So if inflation has dropped, we expect that policy rate must also drop.
As a businessman, as a trader, at least 25% is not bad.
Also, government statistician calls for data-driven initiatives in Ghana's pursuit of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals.
If we are serious about SDG 8, data must be treated as a core infrastructure, essential to the recovery, not accidental to it.
Details of these and many other stories coming up shortly. Please stay tuned. Thank you so much for your time, and straight into our top story. And the Abosokai Spare Parts Dealers Association has called on the Bank of Ghana's Monetary Policy Committee MPC to reduce the policy rate to reflect key economic indicators. Head of Communications Beatrice Adu, in an interview with 3 Business ahead of today's MPC meeting, highlighted despite an inflation rate of 13.7%, lending rate remains high, making Ghanaian businesses uncompetitive.
Dollar is 10 cedis, but our problem is the exchange rate. Now, the these guys, they are holding the dollar now. Policy rate, 28% at the central bank. It's another major problem. Dr. Johnson Esiama tried to reduce the policy rates so that it will reflect at the interbank's rate. 30, 35%, 40% is too high. As a businessman, as a trader, at least 25% is not bad. Because we are Ghana, we are battling to pay our debt. You understand? So you can't take all the cake from the government. At least we need to make sure we need to pay some of our debt. So at least 25% will do. 25% to compare the interbanks so that their interest rate, at least you understand, will come a little bit.
That was Head of Communications for the Abosokai Spare Parts Dealers Association, Beatrice Adu, speaking. Meanwhile, the Ghana Union of Traders Associations, GUTA, has called for a significant reduction in the policy rate, citing a decline in key determinants. According to Director of Communications, Joseph Paddy, the current economic indicators warrant a cut in the policy rate to support businesses.
As we stand now, I think the rate is what we have a challenge. We don't know the kind of rate they're going to come out with. But most times when MPC comes up with their rate, it doesn't have impact on the commercial rate, banking rate. So we want to find out what is the cause, why that's raising. Because as it stands now, inflation has dropped to almost about 13%. And they were using the policy rate to curb inflation. So if inflation has dropped, we expect that policy rate must also drop. That's our expectation tomorrow. But when policy rate drops, commercial banks rate, the interest rate stands where it stands. So that's our difficulty, because we were thinking that it will have a positive impact on our interest rate. But most time we don't see that. So we'll be looking forward to see that as much as we see policy rate coming down, it must reflect on our interest rate from the commercial banks.
And that was Joseph Paddy. He's the Director of Communications at the Ghana Union of Traders Associations, GUTA. Now, government statistician Dr. Alhassan Idrisu has emphasized the crucial role of data in Ghana's pursuit of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Speaking on behalf of Ghana at the high-level political forum on SDGs in New York, Dr. Idrisu highlighted the country's challenges, particularly unemployment amongst women and youth, which he noted has created a dignity gap.
The 2025 SDG report paints a sobering picture on SDG 8, and that should concern us all. Ghana prioritized the 5 high-impact targets, with decent work and inclusive growth at the core. Unemployment remains high at 14.7%, and youth joblessness exceeds 25%. Over 70% of our labor force, mostly women and young people, remains in the informal sector. This is not just a jobs gap, it's a dignity gap. We have also embedded job creation in our monetary policy objectives through the Bank of Ghana. Since 2022, we have produced quarterly labor statistics. This year, we are launching a national survey on skills mismatches to align training with demand. Our compass for this transformation is data. If we are serious about SDG 8, data must be treated as a core infrastructure, essential to the recovery, not accidental to it. Let us act, not just commit. In these 5 years, the future of work and dignity of workers depend on this action.
You heard the government statistician Dr. Alhassan Idrisu speaking. In a related development, the Ghana Revenue Authority has received strong recognition at the 45th annual meeting of technical conferences of the Commonwealth Association of Tax Administrators in Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea. GRA Commissioner General Anthony Kwesi Sapon led Ghana's delegation and moderated a flagship session on implementing global tax standards while preserving national interest. This report has more.
The conference brought together senior tax administrators and policy leaders from 47 member countries to discuss pressing global tax issues and share country-level innovations. Mr. Sapon emphasized the need for balance between global frameworks and national interest, highlighting the challenges faced by emerging markets in remaining internationally compliant while protecting national revenue bases. Discussions during the session focused on key issues such as adaptation of the base erosion and profit shifting measures, treatment of digital services taxation, the capacity gaps in lower income countries, and the role of domestic resource mobilization in achieving sustainable development goals. Ghana's delegation actively engaged in technical panels and bilateral discussions, sharing the country's experiences and innovations, including the implementation of the 2023 to 2026 medium-term revenue strategy and the national tax education strategy. The GRA's participation underscores Ghana's growing role in global tax reform dialogue.
And that was a 3 Business News Desk report, bringing an end to Business Daily here on 3FM 92.7. For more business stories, please visit our website. It's 3news.com/business.